Veronica, what's going on? You never call me during the day. Veronica pointed at the twins, her voice cold. I don't want them anymore. I can't do this. I need my life back. Lisa looked horrified. Veronica, they're your children. You can't just get rid of them. I didn't ask for this, Veronica snapped. I never wanted them. They're ruining everything. Lisa shook her head in disbelief. But you have a responsibility to them. Veronica's voice dropped, her eyes darkening. No, I don't. I'm not meant to be a mother. I was meant for more than this. I need to be free. In the bustling city, where the streets glowed with neon lights and music pulsed through the air like a heartbeat, there lived a woman named Veronica. She was beautiful, vivacious, and craved the nightlife. Her striking appearance drew men to her like moths to a flame. Her passion wasn't for love, but for the material things that came with it. The expensive dresses, the sparkling jewellery, the fast cars, and the attention. But behind this glamorous life there was a secret. Veronica had given birth to twin babies, a boy and a girl. They were born on a night drenched in heavy rain, their cries barely audible over the storm outside. The father? A man whose name Veronica could no longer remember, one among many in her endless pursuit of pleasure and wealth. One cold night after a particularly wild party, Veronica sat alone in her dimly lit apartment. The twins were asleep in the corner, their tiny breaths barely audible over the distant hum of the city. She glanced at them, an unfamiliar heaviness settling in her chest. Veronica muttered to herself, "Why did I even have them? They weren't part of the plan." She stood up and looked at her reflection in the mirror. Her red lipstick, slightly smudged from the night's events, still glistened. Her eyes, however, held a different story. They looked tired, hollow, like something had been taken from her. "I had everything going for me," she whispered, running her fingers through her hair. "The men, the money, the freedom. But now these babies, they're holding me back. I'm not cut out for this." Later that night, Veronica was back at the club, drowning in the bright lights and heavy music. As she danced, a familiar face appeared beside her. Troy, a handsome businessman who had been lavishing her with gifts. Troy leaned in close, his voice smooth. "Haven't seen you around lately, Veronica. You been hiding?" She smirked and sipped her drink. "Just had some loose ends to tie up. You know how it is." He raised an eyebrow. "Loose ends? Like what?" Veronica hesitated, a flicker of guilt crossing her face. "Nothing important, just complications." Troy chuckled, oblivious. "Well, I hope you sorted them out. You don't want anything weighing you down. We're hitting the yacht tomorrow. You'll come, right?" She paused, her mind drifting back to the twins. She quickly shook the thought away and smiled. "Of course I wouldn't miss it for the world." But the next morning, as Veronica prepared for another night of excitement, the cries of her twins echoed through the small apartment. They were hungry, cold and weak. She stared at them from across the room, her frustration bubbling over. Veronica stormed over to their makeshift crib and hissed, "Why can't you just be quiet for once? Why are you always needing something?" She picked up her phone, dialing her friend Lisa. "Lisa, I need you to come over. No, not for a night out, just, come." Minutes later, Lisa arrived, her face confused as she entered the apartment. "Veronica, what's going on? You never call me during the day." Veronica pointed at the twins, her voice cold. "I don't want them anymore. I can't do this. I need my life back." Lisa looked horrified. "Veronica, they're your children. You can't just get rid of them." "I didn't ask for this," Veronica snapped. "I never wanted them. They're ruining everything." Lisa shook her head in disbelief. "But you have a responsibility to them." Veronica's voice dropped, her eyes darkening. "No, I don't. I'm not meant to be a mother. I was meant for more than this. I need to be free." That evening, with a heavy heart and a twisted sense of resolve, Veronica took the twins out into the cold night. As she carried them through the dark alleyways, her heels clicking against the pavement, their tiny faces rested against her chest. She could feel their warmth, but it only reminded her of what she was giving up. She whispered softly to herself, her voice trembling, It's better this way. I can't give them what they need. Someone will find them. Someone who can care for them. But as she reached the dumpster, she hesitated. The cold wind cut through her thin jacket, and for the first time, a pang of guilt struck her heart. She looked down at the twins, their innocent faces peaceful in their sleep. Veronica's hands shook as she laid them down on a pile of trash. She whispered, almost as if trying to convince herself, I have to do this. I need to live my life. This isn't who I am. And then, without another glance, she walked away. The cries of her babies faded into the distance as she stepped back into the neon-lit world she loved so much. Years passed. Veronica's face, once radiant with youth and beauty, began to show the signs of time and regret. The men who once flocked to her now ignored her. The allure of the nightlife dimmed, and the luxuries she once craved no longer satisfied her empty heart. One day, while having lunch with Lisa, who had long distanced herself from Veronica's choices, the topic of children came up. I've been thinking, Lisa, Veronica began hesitantly. I think I want to settle down, start a family. Lisa stared at her in disbelief. Settle down? A family? You can't be serious. Veronica nodded, her voice shaky. I am. I've had my fun, but now I want something real. I want children. There was an uncomfortable silence before Lisa spoke, her voice cold. Children. You had children once, Veronica. Veronica froze, her breath catching in her throat. That was different. I wasn't ready. Lisa shook her head, her eyes hard. You'll never be ready. You abandoned them, left them to die. Veronica's eyes filled with tears as she whispered, I didn't know. I didn't think. You didn't care, Lisa interrupted sharply. Now you want children. After what you did, life doesn't work that way. Years later, Veronica lay in a hospital bed, old and frail. The once glamorous woman who had conquered the night was now a shadow of her former self. She had never been able to conceive again, a cruel twist of fate she had come to see as her punishment. As she stared at the ceiling, her thoughts drifted back to that cold night, the sound of her baby's cries haunting her final moments. I'm sorry, she whispered into the empty room. I'm so sorry. But the only response was the sound of the heart monitor's slow, rhythmic beeping. She died alone, with no one to hold her hand, no one to mourn her passing. And somewhere in the cold darkness of the city, the wind carried the ghostly echo of a mother's regret.